So the news is that again China and USA they're fighting over Tibet. They're fighting over who will be Dalai Lama's successor. Now this has been in controversial for quite a long period of time, considering the fact that Dalai Lama, the present 14th Dalai Lama, he is almost 86 years old, and there are possibilities that he will be announcing his successor, or there will rise a possibility of a 15th Dalai Lama. Now the thing is that there are four stakeholders in this whole situation: China, cultural Tibet, India, and USA. With cultural Tibet, I mean to say that the Tibetan monks who follow the Tibetan Buddhism, they are one of the stakeholders. Now the news is that China versus Tibet versus USA, China and Tibet, they're clashing over the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. Recently, some US lawmakers they have urged Joe Biden to meet Dalai Lama, and now US and China are fighting over the incarnation plans, like who will be the Dalai Lama, or whether the institution will be continued after the death of the present spiritual leader or not. So, if we go back to history, we know that in 1959, when China invaded Tibet, the the then spiritual leader he had to escape to India via Arunachal Pradesh state of India. He had to escape to India, and he is in exile since then. And since then, there has been controversies, there have been issues over his exile, whether the present institution should continue, who will be the deciding factor, who will decide whether US should interfere or not, whether India should have a say in this or not. Now, as you say that this part, cultural Tibet has after it has been invaded by China, China has always maintained it to be part of their territory. They have always maintained this to be part of their territory. So, going back to history, as we see, the present Dalai Lama, as you see in the picture, he was appointed as this, and right now he's 86 years old, and this his actual name is Tenzin Gyatso. His actual name is Tenzin Gyatso, and he's believed to be a living Buddha, and he was identified as the age of 2 years old. I guess he was 2 years old, and since then he continued a rigorous training where he learned a lot about Buddhism teachings, all the teachings of Buddha, he read all the philosophies of Buddha, and then after few years, after almost a decade, he was appointed as the Dalai Lama, as the 14th Dalai Lama. So you see, the process takes long period of time. The process takes 1 decade or two. Like even if one is identified, it will take him years to grow to learn all the things. So there will be power vacuum after he's gone. There will be a power vacuum between the 14th and the 15th Dalai Lama. So this power vacuum is actually a crisis period, because the China, the Chinese government, the China, it wants to appoint their own puppet, like they want their own some own leader to be the next Dalai Lama, so that China could take a control over the spiritual things of Tibet. But India and US, especially US, they don't want China to appoint their own guy. So there has been issues over this. But first, let us look at the process. The process, actually, there are two processes which has been in use for the selection of the next successor. The first one was golden urn method, and the second was dough ball method. Now, in this method, in the golden urn method, as you see, there's a golden urn, and the names are written, and they are put in the golden urn. And a senior lama, he picks one paper, and the name is decided, and the name which comes over, that is decided as the next Dalai Lama. Now, this process has been in use, but now they are using this another method. This another method where the names are placed inside dough balls, and these are kept for 3 or 4 days inside the temple. The prayers are done, and on the fourth day, the cover of the ball is removed, and a prominent lama rolls the balls around in the ball before the sacred object until one of them falls out. and this is the ball that contains the answer. Now, this method has been used by Chinese president, and they want this method to use again so that they could control the selection. But the present Dalai Lama, he does not want this method to be followed. He wants this method, which is usually followed by the monks at the monasteries, to be followed so that they could choose their own leader. As you can see, this was the exile period when they escaped to India after Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1959. Now, coming to US interference, last year in December 2020, they passed this law, this act called Tibetan Policy and Support Act. Now, it had some of the major points which is worth mentioning, that this act was actually passed to oppose attempts by China to install its own on Dalai Lama in a manner inconsistent with the Tibetan Buddhism. Like, US has passed this act so that China should to tell China that they should not interfere in the process of selection of the next Dalai Lama. It also contains some of the features to control the environment of the Tibet Plateau. As we know, the Tibet Plateau is called as the third pole, and it plays an important role in water resources of uh, Asia, South Asia, and it also plays an important role in the monsoon. So any interference in this fragile Tibetan plateau will create serious problems in climatic conditions of South Asia. So this region need to be conserved both in environmental way and the political way and also the spiritual way. And also this act TPSA calls for regional framework on water security to facilitate cooperative agreements among all the riparian nations. Like we have India, there are also other countries like with Myanmar and all the most of the Asian countries. They receive this water from the rivers originating in the glaciers of this plateau. Also, the Chinese officials. This act contains this provision that Chinese officials who will interfere in the process, they will face this Magnitsky sanctions. You know, these sanctions are imposed by USA. Like, the officials who will interfere in the process of selection of the Dalai Lama, they will be boycotted. They may receive travel ban and freezing of assets like that. So these sanctions are used by USA against its rivals. Now, coming to the fact that Dalai Lama, the Prince Dalai Lama, he wanted that he will announce the next successor when he is 90 years old, and he will decide whether the institution will continue or not, or whether he will select his successor. So the thing is that, I mean, we need to wait for 4 or 5 years. We hope that he stays healthy and he decides the successor, because obviously the religious things should not be interfered by government. Like, if we see suggestions, the Dalai Lama should be chosen exclusively. He should be chosen exclusively by Tibet only. The monks of Tibet, the spirituality of Tibet should not be the sanctity of the spirituality of Tibet Buddhism should not be interfered by any government, whether China, America or India. The exile restrictions on Tibet monks should be lifted. Like, they are facing restrictions on travel. They are unable to visit many of the monasteries which are in many of the famous and spiritual monasteries which are located in Lhasa in Tibet. And the passing of law, the law containing exclusive references to another country's internal matters should be avoided by countries like America. So that's it.